All right, without any further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce my friends and wise advisors from All-in-One Accounting. You know All-in-One from past events, and Becky, their integrator, is a committed member of this community and a generous contributor. And today, Becky and Jodi are going to walk us through the fundamentals of a year-end financial checklist. So I'm going to turn the virtual microphone over to the two of them to introduce themselves while I pull up their slides and prepare to walk through that content with you. So take it away, ladies.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jennifer. All right. Well, as the integrator at All-in-One Accounting, I am just beyond delighted to introduce all of you to Jodi Kelly, who I work alongside with here at All-in-One Accounting. She leads a team that is comprised of about 30 or more different controllers and CFOs and serving our small business clients. Jodi is actually the true subject matter expert on all things related to financial year-end planning, but I'm going to hang along for the ride and let her kick off the presentation.
Great. Thank you, Becky. And Jennifer, we can dive right into our first slide there, and we will talk about why. There are a lot of reasons that year-end planning is important, but I think front of mind for a lot of small business owners is the tax implications of the decisions they have made and the performance of their business over the course of the year. And so we want to ensure that we are going through this checklist as a way to prepare all the information that the tax accountants need to help you employ any last-minute tax strategies that may be available to you, knowing that once we hit 12/31, the number of opportunities to actually employ strategies is significantly limited compared to what it is today.
Yes, so now is the time. Do not delay. Hopefully you're hearing this call to action. What we will work through next are a series of slides with different recommended activities for you to consider, as you finalize the year 2022 and really set your business up for success in the new year. There's no need to take notes, although you're welcome to do so. Jennifer will share the checklist, essentially, that these slides came from following our meeting today.
All right, so to initiate this process, you want to start by accumulating supporting documentation for every account on your balance sheet. The balance sheet tends to be, in my opinion, the most neglected financial statement of most small businesses because we are all very interested in how well we're performing from a profit and loss perspective. But that balance sheet is really what's going to drive a lot of the decision making on the tax side of the house. And so making sure that we have documentation to support all of those numbers is really important. And that documentation can be, bank statements, credit card statements, anything that you have that supports that balance. The tax accountant's going to be very interested in seeing that. You will also want to summarize benefits paid on behalf of owners and highly compensated employees and true up owner distributions. So if you are not the single owner of your business, we have to make sure that before 12/31, any distributions that have been taken from the company that are a distribution of profits, either from current or prior year, are exactly proportionate to your ownership percentage. It's very, very important that those agree before we get to year end. And so that is a piece that you will want to be looking at. And then owner and officer wages and benefits are reported separately on the tax return from the rest of the employees. And so we need to be able to segregate those if they are just rolled into your regular payroll and benefit expenses. You'll also want to perform an end of year benefit review and pay special attention to pensions, health insurance, premiums, and PTO usage. We find oftentimes with clients that some of those things have adjusted throughout the year and they may not have made it all the way to the payroll. And so we want to make sure that those are trued up and corrected prior to the W-2s being issued to employees.
Yes, by now you likely have 10 months of financial activity that is represented in your books as actuals. Now is the time to complete a year-end projection with those 10 months of actuals and what you estimate for the remaining months of this calendar year. If your tax preparer has not already requested, they soon will be looking to receive a projection from you. Usually most tax preparers want to have a meeting to sit down and plan those different tax strategies. Oh, there are these fun little things called 1099s that come due at the end of January. And so this is the time to be sure that you're collecting W-9s from all of the different vendors that you've worked with here in 2022. Anybody that you've paid more than $600 to, you'll be processing that tax form, or someone will be on your behalf. And so to have an accurate email address and a completed W-9 from each vendor will really set you up for success in January. Depending on how many different states you have employees, you should be receiving a new unemployment rate for each state where you have team members residing, each W-2 employee. And so please forward those to your payroll provider upon receipt. Again, you may have clients or customers in many states, but this is related to any states where your employees reside. We also want to do a little housekeeping. If you have an expense report template, one of the things we do here at All-in-One Accounting is simple, but we update the mileage rate that has been announced for 2023. We don't do any out-of-town travel here, but if your business does, there could be other per diems or other considerations related to the expense report that, you know, have a calendar update in terms of the rates. So now is the time to be checking into that.
As I alluded to earlier, we're going to want to calculate the portion of total wages for officers and communicate that to the tax CPA. And this is also applies sometimes an organization or business will have an officer who is not an owner. And so this would specifically apply to them. I think we think about it a little bit more with the owners, but we also have to watch that for officers who may not be in equity positions. We want to ensure that credit card transactions with activity dates through December 31st are entered in the accounting software. This is really important. A lot of small businesses like to just enter all that credit card activity when the statement comes. Those usually come mid-month. In the eyes of the IRS, if it goes on your credit card, it is an expense incurred on the date it hits your credit card. So you're doing yourself a favor to make sure that you have all of that entered through December 31st. It's the transaction date is what drives that. And that's true whether you're a cash basis or an accrual basis tax filer. We want to tie out payroll totals in the general ledger and make sure they agree to the payroll reports. So if you are using an outside payroll provider, you want to make sure that what it shows on their year-end reports agree to what you're showing on your books. We want to make sure that you get credit for all the wages that you've paid. And so if somewhere along the line an entry was missed or something happened there, you want to make sure that those all are in agreement. And then if you have a profit sharing plan, you also want to make sure that you've calculated and made an entry for that accrual.
All right. Given the nuances of your specific business, your tax preparer may ask for other documentation. Some examples could be, detail on the payables and the receivables. That could be sales by state or a listing of fixed assets. You probably have a good idea from prior years what that request list looks like, but now is the time you can be drafting or even finalizing some of those things so that they're ready to go when that request comes. With humility, I'll share this next one. Annually, you renew your business registration with the Secretary of the State. one year I forgot to do that. And so now I do it early, like as early as possible. This was something that tax preparers used to do on behalf of their clients years ago, but many or most don't currently. So be sure you have clarity and you're getting the keystrokes done at the Secretary of State website to ensure that you remain in good standing. All right. The last item on this slide relates to internal controls. If you are a nonprofit organization, you likely have this very high on your radar and very buttoned up. But even for-profit businesses need to be thinking about the control environment in their accounting and finance functions. You know, Jodi and I have the pleasure of working with about 450 clients each year here at All-in-One Accounting. But the shadow side of that is, you know, sometimes we're learning as new clients are coming to us that there has been employee theft, or that they weren't, you know, the owners weren't keeping a close enough eye on the activity, and fraud was occurring under in their business. And so the internal controls checklist is one that we have and utilize with all of our clients here. I'd be happy to share that if you don't already have something in place, but please put that on your radar.
I feel like that internal controls checklist could be a whole presentation all on its own.
I think it could.
There are all the examples of why that applies even to very small businesses. Unfortunately, that's been a lot of hard lessons learned.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're here to talk about today. So as we get to that 2022 year-end projection, we want to include actual results through that last closed period. So it's good to be sharing, you know, with your tax accountant where you are as of today and where you expect to be. But we also need to make sure that you get them the actual numbers and that you get the year closed out in your accounting software. If you haven't already, this is a great time to start talking about your monthly budgets for 2023 and what your goals are for the upcoming year. Once you have that budget established, you can use that as a tool and building out your cash flow projection and really understanding when cash is coming into the business and when cash is going out of the business. A concept that is oftentimes hard for folks to wrap their head around that don't work in our industry is that the cash flow does not neatly align with your profits. And many, many times I've had business owners come to me and say, my P&L shows I made $10,000 last month, but there's no money in my checking account. Well, that happens because liability payments, loan payments, there are things that cause cash outflows in your business that don't show up on your profit and loss statement. So really understanding how those two tools work together and having that built out will set you up for success in the new year. It will help you to anticipate when your cash balances might be low. It will help you anticipate if a line of credit might be needed. And while it can be stressful, it's much easier to manage when you know that it's coming versus a fire drill in the moment. We also want to be looking towards sales and use tax. Here in Minnesota, we have an annual filing that is due in January of 2023 for businesses that don't have a routine sales tax obligation. So depending on the states that you're in and the amount of activity in that state, you may have an annual filing requirement, you may have a quarterly filing requirement, you may have a monthly filing requirement. And thanks to the Supreme Court action a couple years back, if you are selling online into other states, you may trigger nexus in those states, even if you've never set foot there. I'm currently working with a client who we realized has nexus in about 20 states, and they have only been filing in 2 simply because they didn't know they had triggered nexus. So if you are unsure on that piece, I would absolutely reach out to your tax preparer and ask them to help you figure that out.
All right, earlier let's see here.
Whoop, did I go backward?
Let's go.
Here we go.
Yeah, here we go. Earlier we touched on 1099s, but 1099s and W-2s are both forms that will be, necessary to complete in January of 2023. Now is the time to really get an understanding and lock in who is preparing each of those 2 sets of forms for your small business. So in some companies, you're able to do those yourself with the right training and expertise. Tax preparers often provide 1099 and W-2 prep as a service, and payroll providers definitely do the W-2s, and some are even doing 1099s now as well. So really just, getting a firm understanding so that whichever place the responsibility resides, it's clear and determined here in advance. The next point is really around cyber and all of the different, we talked earlier about internal controls and the importance thereof. On a similar vein, small businesses and nonprofits really need to be keenly aware of how to protect themselves against cyber attacks. I think between protections to your bank accounts online, your technology logins and the different access points that you're utilizing, as well as cyber insurance, which is noted here on the visual. Those are 3, kind of the trifecta of coverages that we really recommend and ask all of our clients to lean into. And unfortunately, we are seeing, even with our size clients, a fair amount of activity in the cyberspace. All right, and then I believe this is the last item, ERC, which is the Employee Retention Credit. Certainly give some consideration if you have not already completed filing and associated support with that. We've added that to this checklist here since the ERC was offered as a tax credit in recent years due to the pandemic, and certainly we're checking in with all of our clients just to ensure they are well positioned and have properly had the proper support. And I think at this point we have hit the 15 minutes on the nose, and it's time for us to wrap. But thank you all for your attention, and certainly respect for the things that Jodi and I feel so passionate about here in accounting and finance. And please watch for the checklist in your email following the session today.